Well, thanks for watching this Alaska-Canada trip that Johanna and I took in 2023. Our trip began with a 3-day cruise on the Stam, which is a cruise ship. Obviously it had bears and eagles and champagne, but what we really wanted was to see some real animals, and that's why we set out on this venture. But exploring the ship was pretty amazing. This was a Holland America ship. Again, we were only on it for 3 days, and as you can see on this level here, we were able to go all over the ship, and we were passing through the inner passage there, the inside passage, as you can see on that map. And just so exploring that inside passage along Alaska's coast there was just amazing. Truly incredible views of the land and the mountains and all of that. So I'm just going to narrate this video a little bit so you can get a sense of what we did while we were there. Our first stop on the ship was in Juneau. And Juneau, the capital of Alaska, is Juneau. So we got off on Juneau. This was my first time in Alaska. And what we really wanted to do was to see whales. And there's no better place to do that than in Juneau, Alaska. So we got onto a little chartered boat with a group of people, and we set out to see whales. We didn't know if we'd actually see any. It's kind of very fortunate and lucky. But as we headed out there, we kept our eyes on the horizon looking for spouts and flukes and stuff. But watch closely, you'll see a juvenile humpback there breach the water. Let's take a look at that one more time. Wow, just majestic. So cool. So there's a baby or a juvenile humpback whale. So that's what we really wanted to see in Juneau. That was super exciting, and that was pretty amazing. So from Juneau, we got back on the ship and we headed to our next port, which was Skagway. This is where we actually got off the ship and stayed off the ship. Skagway's down there, and that was where we got to do our first hike, was in Skagway. We took a little hike up to the Upper Dewey Lake. You'll see some pictures of Upper Dewey Lake here in a moment. It was just incredible. So we're a little bit up high above sea level, and we had to hike up to see this lake. We crossed over several bridges, and what was really cool about that was that we saw a bunch of salmon crawling up the river.
That's amazing.
Yeah. We also saw a lot of really cool mushrooms, which was interesting. Many different kinds and varieties of mushrooms. We ate all of them. They were delicious. That's a joke. Don't do that, kids. But what an amazing hike that was, up to the Upper Dewey Lake there in Skagway, Alaska. So it was pretty incredible. The lake, once we got up to it, was just stunning. It was clear and beautiful. It was just a mirror of the surrounding forest and mountains. There were even camp areas there in Skagway, up near the lake. So that was pretty cool. Note to self, Johanna met a very cool rock there. We named him Bub. You can see his toupee. We didn't say that to his face, but he's very cute rock. So we didn't spend long in Skagway. We got to get our hike in, which was really wonderful. That's kind of what we wanted to do more than anything on this trip, was to do a bunch of really great hiking there in Alaska and Canada. So, but we knew we had to return and join our group again, so we said goodbye to the ship, we said goodbye to the Stam, and we walked back down to the little town where we were to board a train called the White Pass and Yukon Route Railroad. So there it is there. You can see that this is a Gold Rush era narrow gauge railroad. And we were headed up into the mountains of the Yukon on this train, up into Canada. We're headed towards Whitehorse. So I'm gonna let you just take in some of these views on this train that we were on. Kind of a piece of American history here. We got to learn a lot of the history that was happening in this area as people were going through the gold rush. So we were heading up and up towards Skagway, towards Whitehorse. You can see we're destined for this bridge here, this very scary wooden bridge. As you can see, we're about to go over that bridge there as it's entering into this mountain tunnel. So this bridge was built in the Gold Rush era, so it was a little scary, a little frightening. There we go, we're crossing over the bridge. You can see just how high up we are over here, and you can see the railroad track in the distance where we came from. And just as we passed through, the bridge collapsed and it fell out from underneath us. But fortunately, we survived to watch more beautiful views from this little tree. Check it out. We went higher and higher until we got to Whitehorse, which is in Canada, and the water just became so blue. Once we reached Whitehorse, we took a bus. As you can see, I was not welcome there, but Johanna was with me, so I was safe. So then from Whitehorse, we went into Dawson City, which is in Canada, in the Yukon Territory, which was just absolutely incredible. We went into this little town, like I said, Dawson City. It's an adorable town, and we got to do all kinds of stuff there, which you're going to see now. Even though we were in this cute town, we still had to be very alert to bears, because there's bears all over this place, grizzly bears, of course, even in this adorable town. So we took a little ferry over the Yukon River onto the river beach, and we were with our group again, but we crossed this river here. This is the Yukon River on this little ferry that transports vehicles and people, and it goes across dozens of times every day. So we explored this little beach here with our group. And as we explored, we actually found this graveyard of old steamships, old paddle ships, these sculptures of the past just beached there on the side of the Yukon River. It was really crazy to see these giant old ships just abandoned and rusting away. It was kind of beautiful in a way. After that night, we went to a Follies show, which was really good. They bring people in from around Canada, and very talented people. But the real challenge was the sour toe challenge, where the captain here says, you can drink it fast, you can drink it slow, but your lips must touch this gnarly toe. And he drops this human toe, this actual decayed, decrepit, necrosis toe into this Union Jack whiskey. And you have to drink the whiskey, and the toe has to touch your lips. Johanna was not thrilled, but she did it. She's a trooper, and she got her certificate. She earned it. I also did the toe challenge, but as you can see, I was very interested in this $2,500 fine. And if you swallow the toe, you have to pay a $2,500 fine. So I did not do that. But I did drink my toe like a champ. Let's see that again. Yep. In memory of the sour toes, 5 swallowed, 3 stolen, 1 lost, 6 used up, and 2 still in use. So then we were off to Fairbanks. We took the Yukon's airline off to Fairbanks. It was not much of a town to see, but we did find a really cool hiking area with plenty of animals and trees and flowers, and took a nice nap by a man-made lake. But then we were off to Denali. That's where things got really exciting. Denali National Park, which is only 193 miles south of the Arctic Circle. So as we headed into Denali, we had to once again be very aware of bears. They were everywhere, but we were there to see all the critters that the Yukon had, or that Denali had to offer, and take their pictures and videos and see as much as we possibly could. So the first hike we took, we went out with our group and we went around a little lake there. Before we did that, we went and saw the McKinley Chalet Resort. That's where we were staying, in McKinley Chalet Resort, which was super cool. It was a great little resort. And when we got there, they even had Alaskan Huskies puppies ready for us to pet. So that was amazing. You'll see some adult ones a little bit later. We checked into our room, which was well appointed and very nice, and everything was comfortable, and it was a great chalet. So we loved that. Everything was beautiful about it. And the town that it was in was also pretty neat. There were shops and restaurants across the street there in Denali from the chalet. But at night is when it really lit up and became a magical place. again, with shops and restaurants, and we even had hot chocolate one night with our group, which was really, really fun. Believe it or not, they even had a magician there. Yeah, can you believe it? So that was interesting.
1, 2, there it is! Woo! If you want to see a second bucket removed, raise your hand! And we're going to remove a second bucket.
But of course, we were there really to observe the hiking and get out into nature. We saw a lot of fireweed, which we heard a lot about, and that was very famous up there. Our guide brought us up to the top and then to a lake down below, which was really cool. Amazing lake. Trees everywhere, and the water was just bright, bright blue. No one could ever tell us why, but it was just bright blue. Damn! How did that picture get in there? We saw a couple of Johannas on the beach, and we even saw 3 Christians out on the boardwalk around that lake. That was crazy. So we took a lot of stairs on that hike. It was pretty tame. But then we wanted to kind of get out into Denali and do some more hiking. We went with a friend of ours that we met who was on the trip with us, and we crossed this suspension bridge. You'll see this bridge a little bit later from a train, so remember this bridge. We'll come back to it. But then we took a bus about 40 miles into Denali where we saw bears, lots and lots of bears. And you look closely, you can see a little dot in the middle there. See him? So there's a grizzly bear right there. That was amazing. That was the first bear we saw on the trip. And then we saw a mama bear with a couple of little cubs. Yep, there was a camera on the side of the bus. We also saw some caribou, which were incredible. We got to take some nice pictures. We just needed to see a moose. There's one now. Look closely. See the moose? There he is. There are a couple more. And then we saw a demonstration of the Alaskan Husky dogs. These dogs were just incredible. They patrol Denali during the winter months when no vehicles can even get in to Denali. So it was wonderful to meet them. So we went on another hike, and we had to again be very careful and cautious of bears. There goes one now. Look at that bear. We went on the Savage Alpine Trail, which was more than 4 miles and way more than 1,250 feet up. We had to go up that mountain right there, as you can see, way on up. This was our most incredible and dangerous and daring hike of all. It was raining, it was gusts of wind, 50, 60 miles per hour once we got to the peak of it. It was really crazy, but we were careful and we stuck together to make sure that we were safe. But this was a most amazing hike. And the higher we got, the gustier the wind got. You can see I'm leaning into the wind here as it's just trying to blow me off of the mountain. The rain is just pelting us. But eventually we made it to the top, and then we hiked back down. And that's when we came around a corner and saw the most incredible rainbow we've ever seen. So we hiked back down to the bottom. Beautiful fall colors everywhere, little critters like this beautiful hare, and amazing flowers everywhere. And that obviously just wore us out. So we took a little nap so we could get ready for the next day, where we took a train from Denali to Anchorage. This train was absolutely amazing. It was a dome train, so you can see these views, just sweeping views of the mountain and the sky and the forest. Just incredible.
Ride for hours just to please you.
We took this train from Denali all the way down to Anchorage. It took 4 or 5 hours from Denali down to Anchorage. Remember that bridge I told you about earlier? Look closely. There it is. That's the little bridge that we crossed over. So as we rode the train from Denali to Anchorage, it was a great time for us to just sit back and reflect on the amazing adventure that we had been on, from Vancouver and traveling the inside passage on the ship, going to Juneau and seeing the whales, to Skagway and taking the hike to the upper Dewey Lake, onto Whitehorse on that old railroad in Dawson City with the abandoned ship graveyard, to Fairbanks where we took the nap on the bench, and in Denali where we saw the bears and moose and caribou and took that amazing hike. We were now on to Alaska and thinking about all the amazing people that we had met and all the amazing places that we had seen. So we got to Anchorage and it was time to say goodbye to our guide, Michael. It was bittersweet, but now we were on our own in Alaska and it was time to get our beer on. And Anchorage has some really amazing breweries, and so we went to 3 or 4 of those and just really enjoyed ourselves. Anchorage is a vibrant town with all kinds of quirky little coffee shops, and we were lucky enough to be there during the Rally the Globe beginning. We saw all these amazing cars. Well, I saw these amazing cars, and I do apologize in advance if you're not into cars. You're about to see a bunch of cars right now, but I love cars. If you know me, you know that I love cars, and so I think it's 928 here, a couple of 928s. So I was in heaven just looking at these cars, and so that was right next to our hotel in Anchorage. And it just was a coincidence that we were there for the beginning of this race from Alaska to Mexico. So we're seeing all kinds of cars. Look at this old Datsun here, just amazing. I remember those cars back in the day. Little Mercedes here, SL. There's my favorite, the 911. Look at that thing, how cool is that? As I looked at all these old cars, like this cool Trans Am, it reminded me of what these cars were all about, just internal combustion engines and why we're actually moving to electric, because look at all that. As cool as they are. So I was looking at all these cars and I was on thin ice at that point because it was time to move on. So Johanna wanted to go for a hike. So we stopped into the visitor center there in Alaska and I chatted with one of the locals. And as you can see here, he's telling me to take the coastal trail. We spent quite a bit of time on this coastal trail. We walked it first for a few miles and it was just a really bizarre landscape. It was beautiful. There's these mud flats here that led out into the ocean. Incredible foliage. It was just a really unique landscape and cool animals all over the place. But what we really wanted to do was to see the whole thing. So we rented a couple of electric bikes and we hit the trail, which is 10 miles up and 10 miles back. And we couldn't have done all that on foot. It would have taken way too long. So we hit the trail with these electric bikes. And we made it. You saw these sweeping skyline views of Alaska, which was amazing. And it's quite the adventure. The trail goes underneath an airport, so we were able to see some cool planes as well. We were ending our time on our trip, and we thought it was about done, but then we saw the most amazing animal encounter we had seen yet. We were super close to this behemoth moose. What a trip it was. So we reflected on the time that we had on Alaska and Canada, but unfortunately it was time to say goodbye and fly back home to the continental United States. And that was our trip. Thank you for joining me.